Good morning, brothers and sisters. This is a prophecy report entitled, Ignoring the Higher Plane of Hope. A reader recently sent me an email that said, I know that all of us have heard that depression and suicide are becoming rampant with our children and elderly. I believe the reason is because they have no hope. Many go to church, but they have a propensity for depression and an attitude that there is nothing more to live for. I feel that the church needs to step up and become more aware of the end-time news that needs to be taught and will help lift these poor people's emotions to a higher plane of hope and a renewed faith that the Bible is not a pile of fantasy tales that haven't come true. I know that at least 1/4 to 1/3 of the Bible is prophecy, depending upon who we are listening to. That Jesus told us many times to watch for his return. That when Jesus gave the Great Commission, he told us to teach all nations to observe all, not some of it, the things he said. That the world situation will worsen at the end of the age. That the glorious return of Jesus is our blessed hope. That under the influence of the Holy Spirit, Paul gave us the word of the Lord, something Jesus said about the rapture, and told us to comfort one another with what Jesus said. That I often receive emails from church members who say their pastor never mentions Bible prophecy. They have asked their pastor to mention it occasionally, and he will not do it. And they cannot find a church near them that has a pastor who occasionally preaches on Bible prophecy. I ask, is it possible that the prophesied worsening world situation is causing an increase in depression and suicide in most church members attending churches that have pastors who will not tell them that there is a higher plane of hope? That there is no need for the unchurched to ask many church members what they think about the current world situation because nothing is ever said about it in the pulpit, in the Sunday school literature, in the Sunday school class, and the church members have never studied it on their own? That the lost church members and others are attending churches and listening to pastors who will never tell them that they could be running out of time to get saved? That the answers that some depressed and suicidal people are seeking are in the Bible, but there is no chance they will ever hear those hope-filled, comforting words from a pastor or a church member in their neighborhood. And that the prophesied worsening world situation is partly due to a lukewarm attitude and a spiritual failure in the church that is leading to the coming judgment of God. Church members that will not make it to heaven, the rise of the Antichrist, the coming mark of the beast, and the fulfillment of other terrible events. Here are some recent current events that appear to indicate that the days of pastors and church members ignoring that higher plane of hope are about over. Concerning the failure to talk about that higher plane of hope in view of the prophesied worsening world situation, on September 18th, the Christian Post reported that well-known Christian researcher George Barna has released a new book in which he claims that millions of uncommitted Christians are causing a catastrophic decline in biblical worldview in America. Here's part of what Barna's research shows. Many Christians feel ill-equipped, so they outsource their responsibilities as parents to others, teachers, coaches, and experts, etc., who may not share their worldview and values. Our worldview is the decision-making filter that informs every decision we make: intellectual, moral, emotional, and spiritual. Most of them, meaning parents, were also found incapable of passing on a biblical worldview to their children because most don't have one. They, the parents, can't give what they don't have, and this creates a gaping spiritual vacuum as today's parents are raising their children. I do not question the accuracy of Barna's research, but I found it troubling because the Bible teaches that there will be a falling away, a departing from the faith, a lukewarm spirit in the church at the end of the age, and many will not make it to heaven. Every parent should be sure that they and their children are putting their faith in Jesus. Concerning peace in the Middle East, on September 14th, it was reported that Saudi Arabia, the Arab League, the EU, Egypt, and Jordan would meet on the sidelines of a UN General Assembly meeting on September 18th to discuss ways to change and restart the Middle East peace process. The Biden administration and congressional lawmakers from both parties are expressing optimism that a transformational agreement of peace and security is on the way, but it could be a few months for that to become a reality. On September 17th, it was reported that Saudi Arabia has informed the Biden administration that it is suspending all discussions about a normalization agreement with Israel. In a speech before the UN General Assembly on September 19th, Biden said, quote, "The U.S. plans to seek both the normalization of the Jewish state with its Arab neighbors and a two-state resolution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict." He is practically begging for the judgment of God to fall on the United States. Concerning natural disasters on September 15th, it was reported that the death toll from the cyclone that struck Libya 5 days earlier and collapsed dams has topped 11,300, and more than 10,000 people are still missing. Concerning a cashless society and tracking all buying and selling, on September 15th, 2023, the European Union Times reported, at the recent G20 summit, the Commission President praised the EU's strides towards a block-wide digital identity app capable of storing a citizen's personal information, including credit cards, driver's license, and passport data. The title of the article is European Union Chief Says Public Who Refuse WEF Digital IDs Will Be Excluded from Society. Note, a digital society and tracking all buying and selling is not the mark of the beast, not the same as taking the name, number, or the mark of the Antichrist, but it is that system beginning to come to pass. The pre-trib rapture is the right view. This means Christians will be raptured at least 3.5 years before the digital society and tracking all buying and selling develops into the mark of the beast. In a different article concerning a cashless society and tracking all buying and selling, on September 17th, the European Union Times reported that the leaders of the G20 signed a treaty last week to roll out the WEF's digital IDs and cashless societies, which will be mandatory for all people who wish to participate in society. That the G20 leaders have agreed to impose these policies on their populations without giving the public a chance to vote. The EU Commission President advocated for global cooperation to usher in digital IDs. That the European Union is currently trying to introduce a block-wide digital identity app that would consolidate various personal information, including passports, driver's license, and medical history. Citizens need to realize that the U.S. is a member of the G20. So this article is saying the United States has already signed a treaty to make the World Economic Forum's digital IDs and cashless society mandatory for everyone who wants to buy, sell, and travel. According to the EU Times article recently, most Democrats and Republicans reported concern that the government could control what people spend their money on and potentially turn off access to their bank accounts. Finally, are you rapture ready?